Arizona cruised past Abilene Christian and starts 10-0 for the fifth time in Wildcats history. And how good is this team? We've seen they're great so far, but just how good will they be? What is the growth potential? We'll discuss all that more on Postcast. Thanks for hopping in on Locked On Wildcats Postcast.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Postcast. Leif Thulin with you here. Easy win. We'd expected that, though. Like, you kind of knew that this game was going to be straightforward. The good thing is Arizona made 2/3 of their shots. And you're not going to lose basketball games when you shoot 90, you score 96 points, and specifically when you shoot 67% from the field. And Arizona was uber efficient, but honestly, I wasn't that impressed today. Like, I thought that there was experimentation that was good in the first half, but there were also sloppiness that kind of hasn't reared its head in other games. But the biggest takeaway is Brayden Burries and his confidence have arrived. The Brayden Burries that I expected before the season to be the second or third leading scorer, to be a guy who could punish defenses for overhelping on Coapete, overcompensating for their lack of size, doubling down on Mo Krivas. Brayden Burries is here now. He can attack the rim, finish with back-to-back and ones like he started the game, hit a couple threes. The shot still, I think, has a little bit to leave us waiting for him to even excel even further. But Brayden Burries is officially here. That's what Daniel's got in the comments. That's what I got as well. I think that Arizona has the luxury of knowing that they're bigger, stronger, faster than a team like Abilene Christian, and they used that. And I thought they were good at times today. And the good, of course, is shooting 67% from the field. The bad, the turnovers. The turnovers were a little ugly today, and they had 18 turnovers. So I would tell you I was unimpressed today. But the good part of being unimpressed in a game where you score 96 is just that. Like, you have that much talent, and talent is really important. And we talk a lot about, can Arizona shoot enough threes to beat teams? Arizona didn't need the three at all. And of course, they can beat Abilene Christian every time they play. But they scored 96 by only hitting 4 threes in a game where they were sloppy and did not win the turnover and the possession battle. They had 18 turnovers, and that's a huge takeaway. So I'll read you some of my takeaways and notes I jotted down throughout the matchup. I said the offense looks good in general. I wrote this early. I said the offense looks good in general, but there are way too many turnovers. And then there was 11 in the first half. There's 7 in the second half. And then I said at the very beginning, I like what I see from Big Mo, and I like what I see from Brayden Burries. And I think that Brayden Burries is arrived, but the guy who's been, like, if you were to look at value to the team, you'd probably take Jaden Bradley. They were talking about it on the broadcast. Matt Muehlbach was talking about the win shares, which I think is a stat for baseball more than basketball. Basketball is a hard game to analyze in that regard. However, I think that there's something to be said for Krivas being the most valuable player on the team right now, because he anchors the defense, and offensively, he's playing very, very well. And he was perfect from the field today. I mean, Arizona was 67%, so there was not many misses all around. And I would say those two have been the best recently. Jaden Bradley, of course, very important, don't get me wrong, but Mo Krivas has really staked a claim as being better than a lot of people thought, better than I even thought, and I was expecting a breakout year for Mo before the season. I mentioned the thing that Daryl Dap said about why deviate from buckets inside to shoot threes when they can't stop you. That was Arizona's philosophy today. They went 30 of 45 from the field, 6 of 14 from 3. And so they were not reliant from it. They ended up hitting a few threes, but many of them were after the game was out of hand. And I do like, my last takeaway would be Arizona, I think, could have stifled Abilene Christian more than they did. But I think that there's something to be said for the changing of tactics and showing different defenses, a run and jump at half court, a little bit of full court press, stuff that Arizona doesn't often do. They use to experiment in this game, and I enjoyed seeing that. Coming up next, we're going to talk about a few more things regarding this win. Firstly, I predicted a big Koa Pete game because I felt like he has not had a stamp on a game recently. He had 18 against Auburn, but it kind of felt like an afterthought. I predicted a big game. He had 10 points, and I see in the chat people are saying he looked listless. I don't know about that, but we'll discuss the Koa Pete, and I want to put this in air quotes, tentatively discuss the struggles of Koa Pete and why he's not asserting himself. We'll talk about that, and we kind of revisit the keys to the game that I outlined before this game, and we'll do that and a lot more here on Locked On Wildcats Postcast. The holidays are here, and whether you're hosting family, planning the perfect gift, or just trying to keep things simple and delicious, Omaha Steaks is making it easier than ever. From effortless holiday entertaining to unforgettable gifts, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience straight to your door. And what makes it even better, with Omaha Steaks, you always know exactly what you're gifting. USDA certified tender steaks, premium proteins, gourmet sides, decadent desserts that make anyone feel appreciated. I love how easy it is to gift. It shows up frozen, packed beautifully, and ready to cook. They have so many options: steaks, burgers, chicken, pork, seafood, desserts, something for every kind of holiday gathering and every kind of eater as well. Save big on gourmet gifts and holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off. You can use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. All righty, welcome back to Locked On Wildcats. Leif Thulin with you here for Postcast. Arizona, dominant, 96-62, 34-point win. Let's touch on the keys that I had. Many of them had to do with Koa Pete and the predictions, and then I'll kind of give my personal take on the Koa Pete stuff. So the first thing I expected for this game was I expect dominance on the glass and paint, so I won't really list those, is what I said, because against mid-majors, I expect, and I don't see that as a key to how they win the game. But for those of you who are statistically inclined, much like myself, Arizona did win the glass. They were 38-23. That's a 15-point margin, and they also had 7 offensive rebounds, far fewer than I thought. And I said I expect around 60 to 70 points in the paint plus free throws made, so paint-oriented points. And they had 44 points scored in the paint and 30 made free throws, so that's 74. So they got it done right there. So here's the first key I had. I'd like to see 20 points scored off of turnovers, demonstrating active ideas to be disruptive and speed the game up. I wanted to see this game played at Arizona's tempo. And for the most part, I thought it was. I thought Abilene Christian tried to press, and it didn't work against Arizona for the most part. Arizona had some turnovers, but they were more self-imposed than the press. So the tempo, I think they achieved. Now, 20 points scored off of turnovers, they had 26. So check there. However, I don't really want to give Arizona too much credit in this because they had more turnovers than Abilene Christian. So while the game was sped up, I think those self-imposed errors actually hurt them because they conceded 15 points off of turnovers. So I think that's not great. And I said, following up that key, I'd like 20 points off turnovers, 20 or so in fast break points. As for fast break points, they had 26 as well. So, they checked that, and I said 15 turnovers forced. They forced 16. So they went 3 for 3 there, but the style didn't wow me. I thought Arizona played like a C game today, even though they shot 67%. And don't get me wrong, shooting 67% playing the C game is really, really good. That's because Arizona's the number 1 team in the country. But that's why I'm grading this in terms of how Arizona plays, not just any other team. I just think that there's fewer opportunities to nitpick. When they play a good team, I'm not going to get super in the weeds about that type of stuff. But in this type of game, you can afford to do so. All right, so second key, I wanted to see second chances turn into points. Awaka and Krivas got a ton of offensive rebounds against Bama, and they dominated the glass. They were key in swinging that game in the second half, but they didn't score many of those putbacks, and they were blocked frequently. I wanted to see 15 or more second chance points, and with only 7 offensive rebounds, you're not going to get too many second chance points. They got 9, so wasn't terribly impressed there, but it wasn't easy to get offensive rebounds when you only miss 15 shots. So out of the 15 misses, they got half their misses, or basically 7 out of 15. So, I can live with that one not hitting because you made that many shots. Third key, and this one's harder to check, but like I said, I wanted to feel this game was not played methodically. I wanted to see Arizona impose their will and speed the game up as opposed to just out talent and out athlete ACU. I did feel they sped the game up. I did feel they got out and ran. They scored 96. They were uber efficient, but I didn't feel like they did anything other than out talent and out athlete. Like I didn't feel like the execution was special. I just felt like ACU knew they were outmanned and they kind of tried to play gimmicky at times, and Arizona was certainly able to expose that. Like I said, nitpicking. I just wasn't terribly impressed. Now, the fourth key, which leads into what you guys were asking about at Koa Pete, as I said, this is a fun one. I want to see Koa Pete have 30 points between his points plus assists and what the assists lead to. So I want to see, for example, 20 points and 5 assists from Koa. I wanted to see him be super aggressive. And Koa Pete ended with 10 points and 3 assists. So to answer your question, and I'll read this for the chat so people know what I'm referring to. It says, what's the deal with Koa? Last few games, he looks listless, disengaged, bored, sloppy, even losing the ball. Is it just me? No, it's not just you. That's the reason I had that as a key in this game. I feel like Koa Pete has known that when he wants to get his, he can. And it is of the utmost importance to get other people feeling confident in their own regard for them to be better down the road. So every player on the team has known the priority number one for the last 5-6 games, in my opinion, has been get Brayden Burries playing basketball like Brayden Burries can. And they've achieved that. First 5 games, Burries 8 points per game. Last 5, 20 a game. And he's efficient and he's aggressive. And I thought it was interesting. They talked on the broadcast about how he needed to play quicker. And I honestly kind of thought similarly. I thought he was taking too long to make decisions. He was too composed almost and not reactionary and instinctive. Well, I think Koa Pete is being less reactionary, less instinctive. I think he's thinking too much and trying to get others involved because he knows he can afford to do so. And I think that's not the case against Alabama. In Alabama, he was unfortunate. He got foul trouble. Like early in that game, he was active, and then he got in foul trouble. And then the game was out of hand when he really was able to come back in. Arizona had won because of the strength of his teammates. I think he's such a team-first, winning-oriented player that it has been second nature in his mind to just like have everyone else do their thing. And he's kind of lost the rhythm of being the dude and go after it. So I'm not really worried. I do think there needs to be a balance of how can you get Brayden Burries going? How can you get Jaden Bradley going with Mo being as aggressive as he has been on the interior while still featuring Koa Pete in the same way? I think Burries and all these wing attacks from the drives to the baseline, it takes away some of those short rolls that Koa Pete was thriving off of, with Bradley getting the 15 feet, throwing a pocket pass, Koa getting it with 15 feet and either going up and scoring near the rim or shooting over people. I'm not worried about Koa Pete, not whatsoever. I do think Koa Pete can be more assertive and will be more assertive. I think against a team like San Diego State, it's harder for a guy like Brayden Burries to be as effective because he'll be driving into trees who can block shots. I think Koa Pete will use his physicality and impose his will in that sort of game. And I think you'll see more and more Koa Pete type games that we saw. Like, of course, we were treated to a fantastic game where he dominated against Florida. And he made his mark on national stage day one. I think the expectation was like, okay, we got a 20 and 10 guy. I think the expectation should be you got a 16 and 7 guy. And I think that won't deviate. Like Koa Pete scoring fewer points, but Arizona getting more out of Brayden Burries and Mo Krivas is probably a sacrifice that you guys should gladly accept because he can go up to a higher level. He can score 20. But if there's the balance with 6 players on this team scoring double digits to score 96 and it doesn't feel anomalous, that's a balance and a trade-off you should take. All right, coming up next, we're going to go through our final thoughts on this game and then touch on San Diego State briefly. Arizona, dominant win. It's what you expected. Send me any more thoughts while I go through this break, and I will address them in the chat. I'm not worried about Koa Pete. I do think there's something to be said that they're running fewer pick and rolls, and it's more high-low oriented, so he's been a passer, a facilitator, and Mo Krivas and Brayden Burries getting them involved and feeling aggressive and the most important players. I think that's been the highest priority for Arizona, and I think that's part of why it looks like Koa Pete's a little lost. And yeah, he had some turnovers, but I think that's overall sloppiness as opposed to anything to worry about at him. All right, coming back, we'll touch on San Diego State coming up on Saturday, as well as final thoughts on Arizona, and maybe a little college basketball overall thoughts, because Arizona's number 1, 10-0. Who can touch Arizona, if anyone? All that and more on Locked On Wildcats. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why Gametime is clutch. And finally, fans can get a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Gametime, you can track prices and price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup a realistic possibility instead of impossible. Pick a time, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. The seat view feature is a game changer. I've used this for tennis, and now you can literally see what the pitch looks like from your exact seat before you buy. So you'll make sure you see Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi exactly as you want to once you commit to that ticket. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Gametime. Welcome back to Locked On Wildcats. Leif Thulin with you here. My voice has come back. Still got a nagging cold, but thank you guys, the everydayers, for bearing with me as I fought through, and you guys could probably hardly hear me then. Arizona is one of the best teams in the country. It's absolutely zero surprise they won by 34 points. I thought this was a higher scoring game because Arizona got the pace that they wanted against a very poor offense. Like I think that if they had wanted, they could have held Abilene Christian to 45 points. I just don't think it bothered them because they could score anytime down the floor. And if they had missed, they would have gotten rebounds. I think there was an air of indifference today that I didn't necessarily like from Arizona. My final takeaway would be about this game is turnovers are a thing that will always concern me. They had 4 turnovers against Alabama, and they had 18 against Abilene Christian. And I think a lot of that is that it didn't matter, but that's not the right mentality to have. And while there's been intentionality about getting Burries and Krivas involved, and they've done very well there, I think there's been an intentionality of taking care of the ball, not letting teams beat them in transition because Auburn couldn't score in the half court. And that's a really good offense. And you made them barely hit the rim for a 4-minute period of the game and blew the doors off them. And the only thing that kept Auburn in the game in the first half was turnovers and runouts. So you play Alabama, who plays really quickly, tries to make you force errors and take shots you don't want to. Arizona didn't play a good first half. They played a bad first half, shot poorly from the field, shot way too many threes, but didn't turn the ball over and gave themselves a chance to win. They didn't turn it over in the second half, played more of their brand, blew away a team like Alabama. And now you're seeing Alabama. You see an Alabama-type team, and I think that makes Arizona have a claim to be matchup proof, right? Everyone thought that a team like Louisville or Alabama could really bother Arizona because they make you shoot threes. For a half, there was some credence to it, but I still didn't think so. I thought Arizona just played poorly. Playing a team like Abilene Christian that doesn't have weapons and having turnovers is a little bit concerning to me because it means that there's carelessness. And yeah, you can overlook an opponent. You still win by 34. But that's something that is different than shooting poorly in one of these games. I'd rather shoot poorly and out-athlete and get more rebounds and just fight your way than give the other team 20 points off of turnovers, like especially a team that shouldn't be able to force errors. So seeing Del Orso have 6 turnovers, seeing Koa Pete have a few needless ones where he spun into traffic, had the ball pride. Jaden Bradley at the end of the first half dribbled into a 1-on-3 and lost the ball. I think it was sloppiness. Am I actually concerned? No, but I do think there's something to be said about overlooking an opponent and playing a kind of. I do think that has some weight to it. Now, the last thing I'll say on this game is, once again, I'm going to reaffirm I'm not worried whatsoever about Koa Pete. I am curious to see when you're into Big 12 play, when there's scouting, what the offense looks like. Is it more Koa Pete centric? Because right now it's kind of wing drive and then find a Mo Krivas, or have a seal early, Mo Krivas or Tobe Awaka clears the paint and Koa Pete's an initiator there. I want to see some difference in the attack against a team like San Diego State, which is defensively oriented. San Diego State, I'm not terribly worried about this game. I don't think they're as good as the team, of course, the one that went to the national championship. I don't think they're even as good as the team the next year that went to the Sweet 16. I think they're more on par with last year's team that lost to North Carolina by like 40 in the first 4. But they do have some decent players, and they're going to be physical. They're going to be defensively oriented. I think this is a game that has a game script similar to when Arizona played St. Mary's in the preseason. And I'm curious to see if that's a game where you see more of the Koa Pete, Tobe Awaka mold, where you're kind of using girth and strength to push teams around as opposed to having Okrivas' length be so dominant, because San Diego State's got some length. I don't think they score well, but this is a game where I'm curious if Koa Pete will kind of have his mark more on the game, and it's a harder game for a guy like Burries. Now, if Burries can keep this up, like I said, 8 points per game through first 5, 20 through the last 5, and the efficiency through the roof. Like, he was 9 of 11 today. Mo Krivas 4 of 4. Everyone shot well. I'll be curious to see as the teams get better and consistently are good, not to see if Arizona wins, because I think Arizona, I predicted before the season, I think I said 26-5. The everydayers may actually remember better than me. I think I said 11-2 or better in non-conference and be number 1 by January. That one I remember. And then I thought they'd start 7-0 in conference play. It's getting a little harder to do that because then you have the weight of undefeated record on you. But I digress. The point is, I think this is a team that wins 26 games. And so that's like 26-5. I think you could even be better than that. So I'm not worried about winning. I'm curious to see against the best of the best what the attack strategy is and how it differs from what we're seeing right now. Because against Alabama, it honestly hasn't mattered. Again, because Alabama can't stop you from doing what Arizona's identity is get it really close to the basket and score. Auburn couldn't stop you either. And Koa Pete had 18 in that game, but I still didn't feel like he was the forward figure. I think against the best teams, like you saw it against UConn, it's going to be Koa Pete and it's going to be Jaden Bradley. Now, how does that make Brayden Burries play basketball as the third option? Because right now he's been featured as the number 1 option. I'll be very, very curious about that, and I'll have an episode coming out soon on that and what my expectation heading into conference play is, because Arizona is extremely dangerous and Brayden Burries is great, but can Brayden Burries be the primary option? Can Mo Krivas kind of be featured primarily? Probably not, and it's good to establish it now, but I do think there's an area of concern for how good are they when they're in the role that they're naturally going to play. Whereas Ivan Karchenkov has played his role as the glue guy, grit and grind extraordinaire. He's had no deviation. Tobe Awaka's had no deviation. Del Orso's had a little bit of a deviation, but I don't know what the answer is for can Brayden Burries play off the ball and be a shooter as opposed to this primary high usage rate, get downhill guy that he's been recently. That is a question. But Brayden Burries has arrived. Mo Krivas has arrived and have been dominant forces offensively and defensively. And this is a team that's extremely well-rounded and has the best starting 8 in the country. Like, the top 8 for Arizona are great. You add threes, it's gravy. But if you score 74 points off of points in the paint plus free throws, you're not going to lose, because 74 is likely all that Arizona is going to give up. I think they're going to score mid-80s in Big 12 play, and I think they're going to concede low 70s, and they're going to be really, really good. Well, thank you guys all for listening. I'll have an episode with a few more thoughts on this, and I already recorded an episode with Casey Jacobson, the Stanford great shooting guard, played for the Phoenix Suns, Fox Sports analyst, and he talked about why he prefers Michigan over Arizona. We debated that, talked about the best Arizona teams ever, what could hold Arizona back. So I've already recorded that. I know it's a really good episode. It's coming out Thursday morning. Really would appreciate if you guys tune into that one. Send some questions as well, and I'll have an episode analyzing this game in some detail, as well as previewing San Diego State coming out tomorrow morning. Have a great day, and as always, bear down.